Hello and welcome back to my channel. On this video, I'm going to talk about all of the books that I hope to read in March 2025, and I have got a bunch of good ones on the list. But as always, I'm going to start with the books that I haven't gotten to from previous months, and there are 5 of them that count in that category. So the first one is one that I've been reading every month since the beginning of the year, and it is Daily Essays on Creativity. So it's called Daily Creativity by Todd Henry. And this I'll be reading all year long. So it's going to stay on my list every month. The other books I didn't get to from previous months include The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North. And I have this one on audio and just ran out of time. I was not able to get to it. So I'm going to grab that. Also, The Resurrection of Joan Ashby by Charisse Wallace. I only have this book in physical format, so I know it's going to take me a little bit longer to get through. I think it's at least 400 pages long. It's quite lengthy. So I'm going to start chipping away at that hopefully in this next month. I still need to read Onyx Storm. This is the 3rd book in the Imperium series by Rebecca Yarros. I was able to get to the first 2 books, which were a reread for me last month. And if you haven't checked out my debrief video from April 2025, you'll check that out to see I read them a little bit differently this time, and it was really fun. And then I also didn't get to The Family Experiment by John Marrs. So that is another one that is on my list for this upcoming month. And it is speculative fiction. I started it and I think I got about 40 pages in, but I got to finish that one as well. All right, so next I'm going to talk about the new books that are on my list. And then as always, I'm going to pick 5 books that are from my backlist of my Kindle using my alphabet challenge letter that I will randomly choose on this video. So next up are the books that I have pre-selected. The first book is called Those Girls by Chevy Stevens. And this is a book about 3 sisters who go through a kind of traumatic event in their childhood, and then they grow up, and then one of the sisters goes missing, and it's kind of tied back to this traumatic event. The book description says it's about sisterhood as much as it is a kind of like thriller. So I'm really looking forward to diving into that one. I have a couple of books on my list that are my NetGalley kind of challenge to myself this year. I wanted to do at least one NetGalley book each month, and these are advanced readers copies. Now, both of these books came out actually a couple of months ago, so I'm like still trying to get that backlist done. One of them is called Recharge by David Coe. The subtitle is Boosting Your Mental Battery, One Conversation at a Time, and who doesn't need their mental battery boosted? So I'm excited to try that one. And then the other one I decided to pick up is one called The Procrastination Playbook for Adults with ADHD. And it is about catching sneaky forms of procrastination before they catch you. This is by Risa Williams, and continuing my reading that I've been doing for a while now on neurodiversity, I added that one to my list as well. The other thing you're going to see on my list this month is I'm starting to read more books, as I mentioned last month, about yoga and about somatic practices, and also about trauma, because I'm interested in trauma-informed practices for yoga. So this next book is called Trauma: The Invisible Epidemic by Paul Conti, and I'm kind of starting here. There's a couple other books on trauma that are kind of more canonical texts that I was able to get on audio and pick up. So I'm going to pick up a few of those and start kind of reading in that area. I also decided to pick up a book called Mastering Executive Transitions by Naveed Nazemian, I think is the name. We have a bunch of executive transitions happening at my organization right now, and I thought this might be able to help me kind of wrap my head around that. So I decided to pick that up this month as well. Also decided to pick up, this is from my local library in hard copy, a book called One Mission: How Leaders Build a Team of Teams by Chris Fussell. And I have been doing a lot of team development and just thinking about it in a really intentional way. And this is something that I want to do a deeper dive on. So I added that to my list as well. I also decided to add a newer book that just came out called Heartwood. This is by Amity Gage. And this is basically about a missing hiker on the Appalachian Trail in Maine. And there's a search and rescue team that is trying to find her. And I'm just reading through the description really quickly. There's like a game warden who's like leading the search. And there's also a 76-year-old bird watcher who becomes an unexpected armchair detective. And I just was completely sucked into this description. So decided to pick that up as well. At very long last, I'm going to pick up a book called Self-Compassion by Kristen Neff. I have heard about this book from a ton of people, and I finally want to get to it. I've heard really good things about it, and so I'm looking forward to that. The subtitle is The Proven Power of Being Kind to Yourself, and I talk about and practice self-compassion quite a bit, so I thought I would give that a read. I also added a mystery to my pile. It is called The Last Good Night by Kat Martin, and I don't even know what this is about, so let's take a look. I have this on audio already, and so I'm kind of working my way through my backlist. This says it is a cold case that is heating up. One woman is hot on the trail of a killer with the help of the rancher who hired her to deliver justice. When Cade Logan said goodbye to his estranged wife 8 years ago, he never thought it would be the last time he saw her alive. Now her car has been hauled out of a nearby lake, and Cade is determined to track down the man who murdered her. Enter Eleanor Bowman, a talented private investigator who's about to stir up a hornet's nest on his Colorado ranch. Also takes place in Colorado, where I currently live, so that's kind of fun. I also decided to pick up a book, a romance, that I've heard a ton about. This is the first in a series, and somebody recently posted about a later book in the series and was talking about how much they liked it. And I love to read series in order. So this first book is called Done and Dusted. It is book 1 in the Rebel Blue Ranch series by Lila Sage. The only thing I really know is it's a romance that takes place on a ranch. So I'm gonna pick it up and see what I think. And I think there's at least 4 books in this series now, if I'm getting that correct. So I'm gonna pick that one up too. I also wanted to pick up a book called Between the Lines. This is by Jodi Picoult. It is one of the only books, I think, by Jodi Picoult that I have not read yet. And it is about a teenage girl who is spending her time in the school library with her head in a book. And it is a fairy tale, but it feels real. There is a prince, he really speaks to her, and then one day he actually speaks to her. He is more than a one-dimensional storybook prince. He is a restless teen who feels trapped by his literary existence and hates that his entire life is predetermined. And so it's a romantic and charming story. It's a companion novel to another book. And I think this is co-written by Samantha Van Leer. And part of me thinks this is it her daughter? I'm not sure what the connection is between these two authors, but I maybe we'll learn more as I'm reading through this novel. So looking forward to picking up that. I am also going to pick up the latest Catherine Cowles, All the Missing Pieces. This, of course, is an author that is kind of an auto read for me. And this particular book, let's see. It says, sometimes the last thing you expect is exactly what you need, the final missing piece. And sometimes it comes in the form of a towering, broody sheriff determined to get in your way at every step. Ridley Sawyer knows what it's like to miss someone, to feel like a piece of her vanished because it happened the night her twin sister disappeared. And now Ridley channels that loss into hope, traveling the country, covering cold cases for her true crime podcast. She might not have found justice for her sister, but that doesn't stop her from finding it for others until Sheriff Coulter Brooks gets in her way, and then it goes on from there. So I love Catherine Cowles, and this is like her latest book, so I thought I'd pick that up. Another book I've been wanting to pick up for a really long time is a kind of newer release on ADHD. It is called The Year I Met My Brain by Matilda Bosley, and this is a travel companion for adults who just found out they have ADHD. Again, as part of kind of my neurodivergence reading, one of the things I enjoy is books that are kind of part memoir and part kind of like guide for people who are kind of working through either a new diagnosis or just thinking through how to manage neurodiversity in adulthood. And so I thought I'd pick that one up as well. And I love the idea of the title, The Year I Met My Brain. It's a great title. Okay, then recently on social media, somebody was talking about this kind of longer book series that I had never heard of, and they were raving about it and saying it was so amazing. The first book in this series is called The Seven Sisters. It is book 1 in the Seven Sisters series, and it's by Lucinda Riley. I don't know if this book is really for me or not, but this person was so emphatic about how good it was and how good the series was that I thought I would try it out. So this is about a woman and her 5 sisters who gather together at their childhood home. It is a secluded castle situated on the shores of Lake Geneva. And they've been told that their father, who adopted them all as children, has died. And each of them is handed a tantalizing clue to her true heritage. And this main character, it takes her across the world to a crumbling mansion in Rio de Janeiro, Brazil. And then she begins to put together the pieces of her story and its beginnings. It starts 80 years earlier in the 1920s. And so it's kind of like a historical, I think, like mystery as well, as this kind of like sweeping narrative of these sisters. So I'm kind of excited to dive into that, see what I think. I also added to my list a book that I was on my 25 books to read in 2025 list, and it is called Carry On. This is the first book in the Simon Snow trilogy. I believe it's a trilogy by Rainbow Rowell. And this is like a queer version of Harry Potter, if I'm remembering this correctly. I may have even read this once before, but I want to read the other 2 books in the series, so I'm going to go back and revisit that. I also put a very lengthy book on my list. It is Demon Copperhead by Barbara Kingsolver. This is her novel that I believe won a Pulitzer Prize, and it is a retelling, I believe, of David Copperfield in Appalachia. So I'm excited to pick that up. And then just a few more. I decided to pick up a book called Wool by Hugh Howey, I think is the name. This is the first book in the Silo series, which was made into a television show. And if you've been watching these videos for a while, you know how much I like to watch an adaptation, but I like to read the book first. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick that up. The brief description of this, let's take a look. I think these are a bunch of short stories actually that have been combined together. And it's basically, it says the story of mankind clawing for survival. The world outside has grown unkind, the view of it limited, talk of it forbidden, but there are always those who hope, who dream. Those are the dangerous people, the residents who infect others with their optimism. Their punishment is simple. They are given the very thing they profess to want. They are allowed outside. So, I mean, that sounds great. Don't really know what it means, but I'm willing to take a look. I also decided to put a book on my list that I've been wanting to read also for a really long time. It is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. This is about brain, the mind, and the body and the healing of trauma. It's another book on trauma I put on my list this month. And I am just looking forward to digging into this topic and seeing kind of what I can learn. When I'm trying to learn something new, I like to read from a bunch of different sources and see how they kind of overlap with each other. So excited to dig in there. And then the last book that I put on my list is a book called The Rose Bargain by Sasha Payton Smith. And this book is described as The Cruel Prince meets The Selection. Both of these are books that I read and enjoyed. In this captivating duology opener that's brimming with heart-pounding romance, vicious competition, and beautiful, cruel fae, it says, every citizen of England is granted one bargain from their immortal fae queen. High society girls are expected to bargain for qualities that will win them suitors, a rare talent for piano in exchange for one's happiest childhood memory, a perfect smile for one's ability to taste. But Ivy Benton's debut season arrives with a shocking twist, a competition to secure the heart of the Queen Fae's son, Prince Bram, a prize that could save Ivy's family from ruin and free her sister from the bargain that destroyed her. And so some people talked about this as kind of a cross between like fantasy and Bridgerton, which I thought was kind of interesting. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick that one up as well. So those are the books that I have pre-selected on my list and the ones that I have left over. And next up, I'm going to go ahead and pick my random letter, and that will help me pick what are the books that I'm going to pick from my backlist of my Kindle. So the letter I have chosen is B. Let's take a look at the B books. I'm gonna go ahead and open my Kindle app here and see what books in my library could look good for this month. So first I'm going to navigate to the B's and do a little bit of a scan here and see if there's anything that's standing out to me. All right, the first book that I'm seeing that I'm definitely adding to my list is one called Beg, Borrow, or Steal. This is the third book in the Rome, Kentucky series by Sarah Adams. And this is one that I've read the first 2 books in this series, and this is the third book, and it recently came out. And I have been wanting to follow along with these characters and see what happens in this next book. So that one is an easy one to add to my list this month. The next book that I've been wanting to read for quite some time now is a book called The Best Minds. It's a story of friendship, madness, and the tragedy of good intentions by Jonathan Rosen. And if I'm remembering correctly, let me actually look at this and see if I am remembering this right. I believe this is a book that is about a man who has a close friend in childhood. And this friend, I think when they're in college, he has a psychotic break and he has to go into a psychiatric hospital. And so this friend of the author is a paranoid schizophrenic, and he kills someone in kind of one of his like paranoid fantasies. He ends up killing someone. And so this book is really this guy talking about this friendship and like this situation with this man that he knows. And I just thought that sounded fascinating. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick that one up as well. The next book I'm going to pick up is one called The Briar Club by Kate Quinn. This is a book that, again, if I'm remembering this correctly, I feel like it takes place, it's a historical novel in the 1950s, and I believe it is about a female boarding house that is somehow tied to abortions, I think. It's kind of like a hidden abortion clinic, if I'm remembering this correctly. And it says it captures the paranoia of the McCarthy era and evokes the changing roles for women in post-war America. So that's been one that I've been wanting to read for a while. So I'm gonna add that to my list for this month also. All right, I just need a couple more here. The next book I'm gonna pick up is a book that I'm gonna kind of tie into my current yoga study that I'm doing, because I've been taking a class on anatomy, and it's called The Body, A Guide for Occupants by Bill Bryson. Now, I've read a couple of Bill Bryson books, and I just find him to be funny. First of all, he's kind of a comedy writer, and I'm just kind of curious what his take on this will be. So I'm gonna go ahead and pick that one up as well. And then the last book I'm going to pick up, there are some good ones here. What is the last one I'm going to choose? The last book I'm going to pick up, and it's purely based on the title, is called The Bar Harbor Retirement Home for Famous Writers and Their Muses by Terry Lynn DeFino. I have never read this author. I have barely heard of this book before. It's certainly not one that I think is super popular. It came out in 2018, and it says it's a whimsical moving novel about a retirement home for literary legends who spar, conjure up new stories, and almost magically change the lives of the people around them. And that sounds perfect. So I'm gonna go ahead and add that to my collection for this month as well. Those are my 5 additional B books that I'm going to read in the month of May. And as you can see, I have quite the list, and it's really diverse this month. So I hope you'll check back at the end of the month and see what I was able to complete. And until then, happy reading.